The first thing we noticed is that the ranges are just huge. Percent of marks from exam vary between 4% and 100%. The number of times work marked vary between 11 and 95. And they're under the same QAA regulations here, so all this is allowed. Variety of assessment, 1 to 23, that's it. We've since found ones bigger than 23. Number of times formative only. In one degree program, only twice in 3 years did students do anything that wasn't marked. And that's absolutely extraordinary. In another context, there was 134 occasions. In other words, the main thing the student did was work they submitted that wasn't marked. That was the main capture of student effort. Number of hours of oral feedback in one context. Actually, it says 1 to 68. 1 is an exaggeration. It was a good deal less than 1. It was just the nearest whole number to the number of minutes that they received in 3 years. That is extraordinary because the oral stuff is how students understand the words you use. When you say not sociological enough, you need to talk about it. What do you mean, not sociological stuff? That's where the oral stuff is. The volume of written feedback varied extraordinarily. The top one, 15,000, was in that case study I showed you at the front. So there, the huge volume didn't solve the problem. We'll come to look at why. Turnaround between 1 day and 28 days. And I think the 28 was just a policy statement. In practice, it was a lot longer. So that's, despite the QAA being there, and every institution having quality assurance regulations, the variation in those things is absolutely enormous. It looks as though teachers can afford to do summative or formative only, but they can't afford to do both. It's just too time consuming. So you have a choice to make here. So then it comes, actually you're coming down to structures of degrees. How few occasions in which you put a mark on something can you get away with, so you've got enough time to do the stuff that produces learning. And it's really as simple as that. And then all the stuff about explicitness and alignment turned out to be associated with all the negative things you could think of. And it is not what the QA had in mind, it's not what Bologna has in mind. They're rationalists and they believe that as long as you write it all down, everything will be hunky-dory. It's not true. One of the things that seems to have happened is that in inviting people to write learning outcomes down, they have diversified. If you added up all the learning outcomes across your degree program, there would be a lot. And if you're then told you're supposed to have your assessment that aligns with your learning outcome, you inevitably end up with very varied assessment. Now, from our data, varied assessment is one of the worst things you can possibly do, because there's almost no chance of students rolling what they learn forward to the next assignment because it's different. And students say to us things like, there's no point in reading the feedback because the next thing I've got to do is nothing like that. From the evidence we have, there is a clear trade-off here between variety, with teachers inventing things which they think will be engaging and interesting. They put their heart and their soul into inventing something engagingly different. And students saying, whatever's this one about? You're not seriously going to give me a mark that contributes to my degree classification the very first time I'm asked to do this one, because I've got no idea what you're on about. That's what they tell us. We come across ones that may affect you here, where the institution has said you're not allowed to give feedback on an assignment that's later going to be marked because it would improve students' work, except that that's the most effective thing to improve student learning and performance. What a stupid regulation. And we then come across course teams where, according to the formal description, they hardly give any feedback. When you find out what goes on, it happens all the time, but it's secret in case the institution finds out they're doing it. So, I mean, one of the things here is that a lot of the rules are wrong, the framework's wrong. I know you're stuck with it, but we're talking with Pro-Vice Chancellors about the evidence, and so that part of the project is, can we make sure that the kinds of ways people are asked to write up their course documentation, the things that they're supposed to do, are the right things? Can we make sure that that's the case as well? Because teachers are often victims of some of these, for sure. We've got lots of focus group statements from students where they've read the criteria statements, they don't know what the words mean. Actually, teachers don't know what the words mean either. If you ask two teachers what either organised mean or structure, they've got entirely different conceptions in their head of what these words are about. It's virtually impossible, especially in the humanities, to communicate what quality consists of in a checklist. It's not like that. just much more complicated. Students need to see exemplars, they need to see lots of exemplars, they need to talk about it again and again and again. They need to make judgments about examples so that they're developing their ability to supervise themselves, the stuff I talked about before. You cannot manage to do it by writing it down in course documentation. So another thing the QAA is wrong about. They think that provided it's written down, it's solved. It isn't. It solves almost nothing. The things that you find in programs that seem to be associated with all the good learning stuff, so students are committed, put time in across all the topics, they understand what they're supposed to be doing, they use the feedback, are characterised by lots of formative only, lots of oral, and prompt. That's it. You don't need to know about the other stuff. That's what does it. And literature in schools will say, well, we could have told you about 20 years ago that we knew about that. And it doesn't matter whether you don't do the other things or not. So these things seem to have the impact regardless of whether you document anything. And as documentation doesn't appear to have much of a contribution to this, it's the kind of social processes within which students are reflective about quality which do the job.